All right, so we have our panel ready to go. So this panel will look at how our cultures can use the land in a myriad of ways to promote wellness in our communities. The title of this panel is Native Land and the Roots of Healing. As you all know, we're grounded to the land, we're connected to the land. It's instrumental in our healing, it's instrumental to our ceremonies, it's instrumental to our ways of life. So I'm incredibly excited to listen to this panel that will be moderated by Chairwoman of the Hamel Indian Village, Erica Pinto, and she will introduce our distinguished panelists.
Good. Hauka, good morning. Happy American Indian and Heritage Month, or Native American Heritage Month. It's good to see you all, federal partners, tribal leaders, everybody. It's a good day to be Indigenous. My name is Erica Pinto. I am the chairwoman of the Hamel Indian Village of California. My tribe is in San Diego County. I'm also part of the Secretary's Tribal Advisory Committee, and we have our meeting tomorrow. I also am the chairwoman of the Board of Directors for Southern Indian Health Council. And before we get to our questions, to set the stage, I would like each of our distinguished guests to talk about themselves and their background, and then we'll jump right into the questions. How's that sound? Good? I don't want to see no eye rolling. Where's the lady from the last panel? No eye rolling. No, none of this. I want to see. Yeah, let's start. Okay, let's start with Ms. Sharon Day. Could you explain to us or give a little bit of background about yourself and some information that you'd like to share with us?
Bujun and Indewema Ganidug, Nagamo Mayangan and Dishnakaz, Wabashashi and Dodem, Ojibwe Kwe and Dow, Dishnesho Medeo, Medewana Kwe and Dow. So in English, I said, greetings, my relatives. My name is Sharon Day. I'm an Ojibwe woman. I'm from the Martin clan, and I'm also second-degree Medewan and also Medewanakwe, which is one of the head water women. And I sometimes forget to say this, but I'm also Two-Spirit, or in Ojibwe we say that translates to a special kind of woman.
Delaha Hagi Hasham Shahushi, Dr. Joseph Giovanetti, Talawa Chesney Neshling, Shahushi Haunka Chesney. Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Joseph Giovanetti. I'm a Talawa Dene, Athabascan from Northern California, Southern Oregon on the coast. And I'm a longtime tribal council person. I recently had a birthday. I turned Shede Nesan Tenche Chata Neshling, 7 tens with 4 left over. It sounds a lot better in native language. I can laugh about it now. Let's see, and I've been married for 50 years. I have two children and 12 grandchildren. I have enough granddaughters to field 2 basketball teams. We could win an all-Indian tournament. I was a longtime professor at Humboldt State Native American Studies. I taught with 3 Lakotas. I got the Northern Plains covered with instructor friends from Lakota reservations. And I was recently inducted into the North American Athletics Hall of Fame in March in Green Bay for track and field. I'm in 3 Hall of Fames, and I'm really glad that I lived long enough to be inducted into something, you know. You always try to make the team, right?
Thank you.
Oh, it's on. How may that be Toka here? You had Santewas and a bit choose up below. John Eagle Shield Jr. Machae, you almost like the Mataha, which host by Akichira Haska Ewati. Greet everybody with a good-hearted handshake. I come from Standing Rock. So I live in the community on our reservation called Long Soldiers. Some people say still call it 48s. And yeah, I've been involved with our way of life since I was just a little baby. So that's all I know. And I'm still learning my language, but I can do a little bit.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you all for being here this morning. Just before we go to the questions, I have a couple of things. This is a Native Land and Roots of Healing panel. Land back, 1787 and 1871, the U.S. entered nearly 400 treaties with tribes. The U.S. obtained 98.9% of tribal land base. In return, the U.S. would respect tribal sovereignty and ensure survival and welfare of Indian tribes. So first question, what does the land itself mean to each of you? Ms. Day?
Thank you. I wrote this piece a couple years ago, and I thought I would start with this. If I can hold my microphone and do this at the same time.
You want me to hold it for you? Here.
Sure. This piece is called Radical Resurgence. Return my lands to me, the lands where the bones of my ancestors lie. Give me my lands. I will plant corn, beans, and squash for the children, the elders, and my family. Give me access to the lakes where the wild rice grows. I will harvest, parch, and winnow the monomen and hold a Thanksgiving feast. When we restore our indigenous languages, we will sing our ancient songs as we tap the maple trees to boil the sap for maple syrup and sugar. Give us back our lands and our waterways, and we will restore them to their pristine pre-colonial state. This is sovereignty. To have agency to make relationships, understanding that negotiation means coming to an honorable agreement that is upheld by all parties. Honor the treaties, make reparations, repair the wrongs that have been done. Treaties. It's as simple as this. I live on a farm. I have agreements with the chickens. I feed them, give them shelter and water, save them from the coyotes. They give me eggs. I give some of the eggs to the man who comes to cut the buckthorn. The buckthorn being an invasive, colonizing species on the lands where I reside. The buckthorn colonizers must go, because as good colonizers, their leaves are the first to appear in springtime, and they are the last to drop their leaves in the fall, thus forcing out the maple, the cedar, the pines, and willows. This is what has been done to us, but we are still here, and we will remain here for as long as the rivers shall flow. How long will the rivers flow? Are the rivers worth protecting? Is the Mississippi River, the main artery of Turtle Island, worth protecting? Indigenous people believe that what we do or do not do affects the next 7 generations. In the future, is the future of our great-great-grandchildren worth protecting? Is the earth worth protecting? What do you love? I think it is not the earth or the rivers or your own descendants, because we protect that which we love. Let us look into our hearts. What do you love?
Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. What does the land itself mean to you, Doctor?
When I think of the land, I think of sacred geography. In basically every culture on the planet, sacred geography, you can see it like the the ancient pyramids, for example, doesn't matter which ones, Maya civilization, Egypt, doesn't matter. That power that emanates from those places. It's hard to put into words because it just kind of overwhelms us when we're there. One of the descriptions of why that happens is that with prayer and preparation to those ceremonies in our sacred sites, for example, I think about in my region, Northern California, when people go into those dances, they're experiencing what some psychologists term absolute reality. In other words, it couldn't be any better than to be or blessed than to be in that place at that time with that community prayer going on, that thanksgiving and prayer for regeneration of the earth and for continuation of all the species and for the future generations of our children to come healthy. And so I think about that, and I think about one of my Karuk friends who passed in the last year or so. One of his poems, I absolutely love it. And I have to say this because I think none of this, what he said, happens without our connection to land. And he was a really famous artist in our region in Northern California, the late Brian Tripp. And I paraphrased this poem, but he forgave me for doing that. I read it to him one time. He goes, close, but no cigar. So he said, through my veins flows the blood of singers, dancers, basket makers, makers of regalia, believers in the old ways. In my mind and in my heart, I know I have done these things many times. There's no possibility of doing any of that without a respect, an abiding respect and love for the land. That comes to mind when I think about it.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Eagle Shield, Jr.
Well, to me, it means everything. Our land has everything we need, all the medicines that can cure any kind of disease. And just like the songs that I sung this morning, as Lakota, we always talk about, our origin, where we come from, is a place in the Black Hills. So even back then too, Lala Tonkashila Tatanka Iota Ke Sitting Bull always said that. The first song I sang, it translates to, the Hunkpapa peoples, stand proud because the Black Hills belong to you. Then the second one, he said, my friend, whatever you decide, the Black Hills belong to me. I say this and I take courage because I was told a story by my grandpa, and he's my uncle, but I've known him as my grandpa. His dad was a very powerful spiritual man. And he told him, there were spirits that in the Black Hills where everything goes. So us as Lakota, when we go, that's the place we go to. And there are medicines there that can cure anything. There are medicines there that, sometimes are only known to spiritual people. But every land, all the land within what, you said Turtle Island, but us as Lakota, we always said Makoche Washte, the good lands. Because of that, it's plentiful, it's abundant, resources for us as Native people. And it's always going to be important.
So with that, how does the loss of land impact our tribal communities? Ms. Sharon, would you like to start?
Well, I kind of already said that. But earlier, yesterday, somebody talked about it's not only about the loss of land, but what's been done to the land. So yesterday, one of the speakers said that there were 523 abandoned uranium mines on Navajo. And where I'm from, on the northern Minnesota, we've had mining since the late 1800s, mining iron ore and then taconite, and now they want to mine for precious metals, sulfide mines, and we've held that off for a while. And in fact, I think it was 2014, we walked the St. Louis River when they first started talking about these sulfide mines. And so far, like I say, they haven't been able to do it. But if they do, that will destroy our wild rice beds, the monomen, the foods that's the most sacred to us. And so it's not just the loss of the land, but it's what they've done to the land. We think about the earth as our mother, right? Nimama Ki, the earth mother. And there's been so much of the extraction. It's, we have a ceremony, full moon ceremony, and when there's an eclipse, we say that's a time where the moon and the sun can see each other and talk to each other directly. And also, it's a time when, the moon can also look at her daughter and see what's been done to her. And I believe that when we do these extractive things to the earth, that is rape of the earth. And that is also why we have such a high incidence of rape and murder for Native women, right? Because they do not respect that the feminine. And so it's not just the loss of land. I mean, we've lost most of our lands, but it's what's been done to the earth, I think, that continues that harmful behavior towards us, and especially us Native women.
Thank you. Doctor?
Such a big, all-encompassing question, but an important question. I think about in California, before the gold rush, before the intrusion of, I don't know, everybody, the Spanish, Mexico, everybody coming in and claiming our land, we had as many as 350 tribes and possibly up to 1 million Native people living there in that 130 million acres of land called California now. And we still have 109 federally recognized tribes there, but we only have 2 tribes with federally recognized fishing rights. And those are not recognized by treaty, those are recognized by executive order, which sort of carries the same weight as a treaty. And I think about the struggle for my people to be able to feed ourselves. Like when I was in my 20s, I could go fishing for smelt, small fish. They're delicious, they're fabulous. We used to have them in the millions. I could get 50 pounds of smelt in an hour and a half. And now some of my cousins, they set camp up on the beach in the summer when the smelt are trying to come in. And there's so few that a whole family working together in a week's time might get 50 pounds. I could get that in an hour and a half 50 years ago. That's how bad it's become. And so the intrusion of colonial systems, people coming and digging clams in our space, taking anything and everything with no limits, no respect for no, it needs to be able to procreate, to continue to perpetuate the species or whatever they're taking, the seaweed, anything, the ferns in the forest, people who have come in because of genocide in their countries in Southeast Asia and now living in our territories, who are just trying to survive, but they don't kind of have the same understanding or regard or respect or love for the land that we do. Hope that doesn't sound too territorial or racist, but so I think about the, but on the good side, on the plus side, the little bit of land that my tribe has, we used to have 2 million acres of land before contact. And I think today we have like maybe 1,000 acres of land. A lot of it's not even in trust. We have 23 applications pending at the Bureau for BIA for moving them into trust. It only takes 7 years, right? Plus a lot of money going to attorneys and all that. But I think that each piece of land that we have, every bit of it, is a window to the original understanding and respect and love and basis or foundation for how we can have life and be happy.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that answer. Same question. Want me to repeat the question? Yes. Yes. How does the loss of land impact our tribal communities?
To me, it impacts in various ways. The loss of land, there are some places where we used to be able to go to get medicines that private owners and all these other things, so then it makes it difficult for us to go there. Same thing with places we used to pray, our sacred sites, where it was land that belonged to us, and we were free to go there anytime we needed. Now there's private owners. Now it's posted and no trespassing signs everywhere. And it makes it difficult for us to go to these places of prayer, to go to these places of to get medicines. And it goes back to even the Black Hills. They're still we're in that fight, where the Black Hills are not for sale, because the land is so important. Because everything we have, everything that we can get is there. But because of private owners, because of all these other obstacles, it makes it so difficult for us. And even for us as well, a lot of the times, what the lady said too, what they're doing to the lands makes it difficult too, because there are all these pollutions that are killing off our native plants that we use for medicine. You go to some of these other places where, deer and wildlife used to be abundant. And, just like how he said, back then it was easy to get their food that they wanted, the things that they needed. The same thing for us too. All these different pollutions with oil drilling and fracking and all these different things that from the land that they took from us are chasing the wildlife out too. So those, in my opinion, those are the impacts of the land. And for me, it's so important for us to be able to go back to these places where we can pray, where we can, pick and harvest our medicines. And, yeah.
Thank you. So the loss of land is really destroying our communities. It's contaminated. We can't grow our foods. We can't sing. We can't dance. We can't collect our fish. We can't do these things with that contamination, and the land is being raped, and I agree. Speaking of land justice and health, land is central to healing. We can't discuss traditional healing and our roots without discussing the health of the land, as you said. Although reservations only make up 5.6% of the land in the western United States, 1 in 5 uranium mines are located within 6 miles of a reservation. More than 75% of uranium mines are located within 50 miles of a reservation. Proximity to abandoned mines is associated with chronic disease, cancers, and early death. How can we address the health of our people by addressing the health of our land?
Well, I think in order for us to return to an indigenous diet, I tell kids I work with, 100 years ago, we could all run 35 miles a day, or we could canoe 35 miles a day. And today, how many of us could do that? And maybe there's some marathon runners out there that could do that, but for the most part, that would be an impossible feat. So what happened to us? What happened to us was the food that we eat. We were talking earlier, and I said, they used to bring that commodity corn meal to us, and my mom would make it for breakfast. I hated it, but if she made rabbit soup, then it was delicious, right? But they changed our diet by giving us, forcing us to be on small areas of land that couldn't support the number of people that were there. And even though, in Minnesota, I'm from Bois Forte, which is up near the Canadian border. So from International Falls all the way down to Duluth and then up to Grand Portage, that was all ceded territory. But it didn't matter because hardly anybody had vehicles when I was a kid, to get over into that ceded territory to go moose hunting or hunting deer. So we have to figure out, how to return to an indigenous diet. And that means like growing the kinds of foods that we ate in pre-reservation system, right? And some of that foods are like, we have a indige baby food. And so we grow an heirloom squash called getigasami. It's bright orange, looks like a pumpkin, but it's long and narrow. And it has less sugar in it compared to 5 other squashes. We use wild rice and blueberries. We also use a Hopi bean and squash. So we have 5 different baby foods. We think that if we can feed our babies an indigenous diet, we will do more to reduce diabetes in our community because, we all know diabetes, stroke, heart disease, that's what's killing us. So in our baby food, there is none of that. There's no sugar, no salt, no fat. And but it's healthy food. So I think if we, food sovereignty, cleaning up the land, you can't grow healthy food if you don't have healthy soil. And you can't have healthy soil without having healthy water. Last year, I lead these NIBI walks, water walks, and we walked around Lake Superior. And I tell you, when we were on the northern shore of the lake up in Canada, the vegetation, there was so many different kinds of vegetation all along the way. And we picked all kinds of berries. It was in August. We picked all kinds of berries. Like maybe 4 or 5 different kinds of berries, choke cherries, just such a variety of vegetation. As soon as we crossed over into the States, Sault Ste. Marie, and we're on the South Shore, everything changed. It was like grass, a few different plants, but nothing like the kinds of vegetation, the variety of vegetation that we've seen in Canada. Now, I do want to say, though, that when we were in Canada, we had to purchase water along the way because of, same thing, the gold mines, the mining that's up in Canada. Nobody, couldn't drink the water along the way. We had to purchase it. So even though they had wider vegetation, they still have a lot of issues around the water. So we have to take care of it all. We have to and take care of it. And, if you take a glass of water, I tell this to kids all the time, take a glass of water and you put some salt in it and you put some dirt in it, the salt and the dirt will settle to the bottom. But if you move that glass, what's going to happen? It's all going to rise up into the water again. So it's easier for us to keep something clean and preserve it and conserve it than it is to try to clean it up later. In Minnesota, I served on the Clean Water Council, and the land of over 10,000 lakes, 50% of our waters are impaired. And we've been working on this for 20 years. The law will run out pretty soon unless they extend it. But we haven't done very much about cleaning up. You know, at the end of 25 years of work, we will still have about 40% of our water impaired. So it's much easier to take care of it in the first place than to try to clean it up later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you say it again?
Yes, the question is, how can we address the health of our people by addressing the health of our land?
Wow. I think most of us here might be really considering or already involved in breaking the silence is probably one of the most important things. I think about, you know, the potential pollution of all of our waters. I think about sometimes how even our own Native people who become sort of industrialists or colonists in their own ways, not a lot of them, but some, by polluting our lands through their own agricultural practices, which sounds horrible, but I know some cases. But I'm not going to put it all on us because we've been colonized. And so I'm thinking, breaking the silence about everything that's being done to pollute us 24/7. I was approached by an attorney in my area, and he said, would you consider serving on this water board? I said, well, let me think about it. I'm only on 10 different boards right now. But anyway, it didn't come to pass, but he shared with some pollution going on in my region. And I thought that's going to be a heck of a story when that breaks one day, because it's going to affect so many people in California. And I'm thinking, like, why didn't he break the silence about it? He's an attorney for them, right? And he's volunteer, but I mean, just speaking the truth, I think about like the annihilation of the wiping out of the Ogallala aquifer. You know, it only took 1 million years for that to build up, and then for that to be just like that in a couple hundred years, you know, in that part of the country. So a lot of us, you know, and my tribe is one of our 7 or 8 rivers in our territory. It's considered the 2nd or 3rd cleanest river in the United States, but I have my doubts because the amount of gold mining that's gone on in our region since 1850, although it's technically illegal now. Although there are proposals every year for people who go, darn rights, we want to be able to go out there and mine gold on that river again. Sadly, even some of my own cousins from my tribe have gone out and made money. I mean, serious money in a weekend. Hate to say it. So I'm thinking, like, the Jungians are probably described as like, you know what, each one of us needs to own our own shadow, our own mistakes that we make, and live up to that and take care of it and do something about it.
Thank you. Mr. Eagleshield. Yes, sir. How can we address the health of our people by addressing the health of the land?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to answer this correctly or give you a precise answer to the question, but the way I see it is if we can address pollution, we can address the health of our people, not only the land, but, you know, even in certain things that we do put in our bodies, you know, that's causing our own pollution, I mean, of our bodies. You know, when we talk about pollution too, when I was about the land, you know, the lady said there's uranium sites all over, you know, or you said that for every tribe. You know, when I was younger, there's a river. When we're at Sundance, we used to, when everything was done, we'd go swim there. When I was a little boy, and then now they say, you know, you don't swim there because you might come out glowing. because of the uranium down, upriver. And I think that, in a sense, has to do with even the health of our, a lot of people, they see the land being, polluted, and it seems like that has an effect on ourselves too, because we put things into our body that gets polluted too. When if the land was clean, if there was a way we could keep the land clean, we could get those natural remedies, those natural foods, natural medicines and things to put in our body. I think everything itself would be a lot better for it, even within ourselves. But, and just like he said too, breaking the silence about it, because even back home too, another big, like a big battle is, they call it the Dakota Access Pipeline. Our main water source is the Missouri River. And if, they always say it's not if a pipeline bursts, it's when. Just think of all the people, millions of people downriver who are going to be affected if, or when that happens. So finding ways to keep our lands pure will help us stay pure too.
Thank you for that answer. We have a final question. Well, first of all, what I did as an Indigenous person, as a Kumeyaay person, I stopped putting things like alcohol in my body. I'm sober 11 years. I stopped ingesting sugar. So I think those are the little steps that I'm taking to try to, start with myself. But land is so important for all of us, and obviously, clearly, we have a deep connection to our land. The final question for each of you, are you ready? Can you share with our federal partners who are in the room their role? What role does the federal partners play in our lands, and what does it truly mean to support the health of our nations, of our people, from the federal people in the room? Does that make sense? I'll repeat it. Can you share with our federal partners the role they play in the protection of our lands, and what it means to truly support the health of the nations, our people?
Well, one thing is give us back our land. Give us the resources we need, right?
I don't see any federal people clapping.
I originally wrote that piece, Radical Resurgence, because everyone keep asking me to do these land acknowledgements, right? And so that was my response to that, was give us back our lands. But we need resources, to repair some of the things that have been done to us. And, in Ojibwe language, when we do our greeting, Nindawe Maganidug, that means all my relations. And that doesn't just mean human relations, right? When we say that, we're addressing, the birds, the water, the land, everything that grows, everything. We're addressing everything. And I know in our organization, we have SAMHSA funds a program, ANA funds another program. And what we do is we have a policy in our organization that we do not provide any sugared beverages for any of our programs. This year, the board of directors passed another policy that is that we begin every program with a SEMA, with tobacco ceremony, every program. And, that makes such a big difference. In 2000, when we had the first funding for tobacco prevention, 66% of all Native adults in Minnesota smoke cigarettes. Nobody really wanted to do that work, so we did it. But today, that number's gone down significantly. And many of the youth coming into our programs, before, they would smoke, and we would say, you cannot smoke while you're in this program. But today, that's not the case. So we've made a lot of changes within our communities, just even over the last 20, 24 years. And I think for us at the Indigenous Peoples Task Force, we started off as an HIV organization back in 1987 when people who had an AIDS diagnosis, you died. There were no medicines and no cure. And so we reached out to all the elders. We asked them to help us. When we talked about death and dying, we couldn't talk about it from a Western perspective. We needed to talk about it from our own perspective. And most of those work that we did with elders, there was never any funding for that. We came up with the money ourselves to do that work, to help our our elders, and that's the way that it was, and that's the way it continues to be. But we try to take those concepts from our own community. Faith was saying something about, somebody said what was the word for sex. Well, we asked the elders, what is healthy sexual behavior? And they had to think about it a bit, and then they came back and told us, and those are the things that we included in our curriculum. So I just want to say, end on kind of a hopeful note that we have made great strides. On my farm, we do regenerative farming. I asked an elder once, how should I plant a garden? And he said, the first row is for the elders. The second row is for the children. And then the rest is for the community. Now that is a totally different concept than my neighbors down the road whose everything they grow is for a CSA, right? So, and those are the kinds of things that we're doing in many communities. And I think, we all deserve applause for ourselves across the country for the work that we're doing in our Native communities, because we are, there used to be an old feminist phrase that was, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And but that applies to all of us. And I think, we do the work no matter what. But you feds can help us by getting rid of some of your regulations. The thing about like no food, that is so crazy, because then we have to go find resources someplace else, because we'll never invite people in from the community to come to one of our programs and not feed them. That is like, we can't even imagine doing that. But in so many of the federal programs, it's no food. Sometimes you can call it something else, but then, but they could just get rid of some of those regulations that make it so difficult. And I think in the FDA, I don't know if anybody's from there, the ag programs, we really need help with growing healthy foods for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you give
The
me-
question? Can you share with our federal partners the role they play in the protection of our lands and what it truly means to support the health of our nations?
Boy, think about the federal trust responsibility, with IRFA being passed as late as 1977, and then the amendment to try to keep it sort of real, more strength or efficacy or power to it, protections, as it were. I think about, I'm having a COVID moment. I had COVID 4 years ago. I was on a ventilator 19 days, and every once in a while I'll space out and go, oh yeah, where was I going with that one? I'm thinking about that we're not just talking about niceties. Wouldn't it be nice if natives had this or that to protect their ways of life? I think about I think that throughout that strand probably should go throughout the federal trust responsibility to all the federal agencies these are not just nice stories about our connection to the creation and trying to survive and life as it goes on, but that I think that Dr. Craig Cayete, the Pueblo scholar, psychologist, I like his term that he uses. He writes about biophilia. Biophilia, that regard, that systematic way of thinking about respecting all relationships with all the creation that we depend on, and praying before we take any life, that is just, thanking that life source and respecting that life source, not to over-harvest it or to be rude or disrespectful in any way. And by protecting that relationship with each life form, we're protecting the possibility of life continuing for all of us. So I think about biophilia a lot, because I think that how many people stop and consider that some people it's not just a nice story, that kind of is very close to the essence of their being, that those ways be protected. Otherwise, what do we have? Very little.
Thank you, Doctor. Question? Can you share with our federal partners the role that they play in the protection of our lands and what it truly means to support the health of nations?
Well, to me, I think, there has to be better regulations. She said to kind of take away some of the regulation. I think there has to be better regulations to protect our lands, especially waterways that are miles ahead of you, but we feed off the drainage. And I feel there has to be a better understanding working with Indian communities, the sovereign, the nation to nation. There has to be a better understanding of why we cherish the land, why we cherish the water, why we cherish all these natural things that are important to us. I think there has to be a better understanding on a federal level, and for them to have better regulations so that they could better help to help stop pollutions, to help stop all these different, atrocities that are happening to the land and to our communities all over.
Thank you very much for all of your responses. I know we're going to lunch, but I do want to make a plug, because land back is important. If you got anything out of this panel, it's the importance of having our land, especially, I'll say, in California. We're all along the coast. We depend on that ocean, but we have no land in Southern California along the ocean, along the Pacific Ocean. So any federal person in this room who's listening and has the power to give us some land along the coast in San Diego, not because it's San Diego, but all our tribes are in San Diego. We need some land. We have that connection to the land, to the ocean, and we need it for our survival. We need our ceremonies to be done. We need our sacred sites protected. We need to be able to grow our foods, to feed our youth and our elders and our people. So it was an excellent discussion. Thank you all for your answers. Please give our esteemed panel a round of applause, and have a good lunch, protect your elders, have a good summit, and we'll see you tomorrow. Signing off.
Thank you so much to Chairwoman Pinto and for our entire panel for their insights, talking about land back, such an important movement that is happening, continues to happen in Indian country. And so we thank you again for sharing your insight, your experience, information, as well as giving us something to think about as we get ready for lunch. And save your questions. I know Sharon Day had questions if FDA is going to be in the building. They're going to join us. If they're not here already, they will be here right after lunch for our Food is Medicine panel. But we are going to break now for lunch. We're going to break until 1:55 p.m. I'm sorry, 12:55 p.m. Yes, 1 hour, 12:55 p.m. If you pre-ordered your lunch, you will be able to pick them up in the East Wing once again. If you did not pre-order your lunch and you plan on going up to the cafeteria, just use the PH button on the elevator. And if you're leaving the building, make sure to take your ID to come back. Again, we'll see you at 12:55 for our Food is Medicine panel.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.